All right, welcome to Raising Excellence podcast, one of the most valuable hours in your day. And I'm Tyler Bloyer. As you know, I'm back as a guest host today. Was lucky enough to guest host a few times last week, and really excited to be back. I enjoy doing these podcasts with the great group of people that surround themselves with this work, and the people that are here with us today. And let's just do a quick roundtable to say hello today. Deirdre, since you're next to me on the camera here, you're our developmental strategist. Could you say hello?
Hey, thanks for joining us. So glad you're here.
And she's got her number one fan there with her. And Dennis, he's the freedom facilitator for the show.
Buddy, glad to be here with you. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us.
All right. Thanks, Dennis. Glad to be here with you too again. And Willow, the trauma consultant. All right. Thanks.
I couldn't
Glad
hear
to be
you,
back.
Willow. Why couldn't I hear Willow?
I think she's
I don't know. It could have been a glitch in the matrix. I heard her okay. She was a little quiet.
I can't hear you at all. We just did a mic
I
check.
can't hear you either. Oh no.
Oh no.
I can seem to hear her okay. So she can double check her
Can
wires
you maybe
there.
hang
It's not a
up,
problem.
hang up and come back?
Yeah, she can reconnect.
Because if one
in.
person can hear you and the other people, it will be like the other day. It was with me.
Yeah, I'll come right
no,
up.
no, you're here. You're here
She's
now.
here.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Magic.
All right,
Good,
failing forward. We're failing forward, and we don't want to forget Agnieszka, the psychosomatic illuminator, who just illuminated a technical problem there, and we probably got over that hurdle.
We're over that hurdle now. Now it's time to take over the world. Let's do it through planning.
Yes, how to handle your life with planning. So, how's the discussion been going this week on planning, and what are some of the highlights that we've gathered so far and from the project this week?
Yeah, it was honestly a bit of a shit show yesterday. It was just the girls. We didn't have a leader. And so we ended up being off topic some of the time. But we did cover some things about planning. I think that today, with the anchoring energy of masculinity, we'll do much better.
Yeah, I was going to say the highlighting thing that I learned was we definitely need other, like, people, maybe like emeraldy types to help get us back on track. Because I would say it like almost every time I talked. I was like, we keep doing this. I'm totally off topic. I don't know how we got here.
But it was good discussion. We had good discussion. Discussion doesn't have to be on topic to be good.
Yeah.
So, well, we have some listeners already, so why don't we get on topic today? Handle your life with planning and the logical fallacy of the week today on this channel.
I think we'll hold the logical fallacy for the end, only because it could consume the entire show. It's a great fallacy. But maybe we'll just hold that for now, and keep that in the planning schedule just a little bit later. But so to handle your life with planning, now, is that only an emeraldy thing to do? Or, Agnieszka, you and I talked before this show about planning for working with clients, and you explained to me your process, and it seemed pretty emeraldy. So I know that you can do certain tasks, very diligently, maybe when it comes to more money matters or financial things. So although you might try to play it off like you don't, can you tell us a little bit about that, or how you might handle tasks do you have to force yourself to do that? Or
well, yeah, when it comes to money, it's a little bit tricky for me because on the very deep level, I still have the belief that I don't really care about it, but on another level, I would, I strive to make things better for clients and stuff. But what really drives me at work, and what really drives me to, be more diligent or whatever, is the fact that people depend on me, people counting on me. I find, and even, when I make a mistake with a client, I mean, obviously every single person makes a mistake, right? But when I make a mistake, I've noticed today, I get like almost like a panic attack. Oh no. And so then there's that adult brain of mine goes, whoa, what's the big deal? Why are you so scared? Right? But this question was about planning, and I'm taking off topic already. There, one day without guys, and that's it. But I do manage to plan. I have sticky notes. I write people's names on sticky notes. I have lists of what I need to do. Like this is for tonight, right? Then I have another sticky note for the week. I have whiteboards. So I try to emeraldy my life, even though it's not my nature. And we have a
Did you
great
guys
spreadsheet for raising excellence. Dennis,
did you guys discuss the result of the exercise yesterday?
a little bit. What was your score?
Hold on. Well, I remember the name. I don't remember the points
Oh, what
exactly.
was the
But
name?
I was in the visionary crazy maker quadrant of that was
Visionary.
given, and it was actually really surprising to me. Like I would not have thought that that little exercise could hit the nail on the head so well, but it seemed to describe me really good. And yeah, so I would say that was really helpful, and it took just a few minutes to do it really. Um, it was basically telling me that I'm yeah, well, as a visionary, like I have no shortage of ideas and of visions, and I'm pretty good at goal setting as well. And I have been even getting better, like through autonomy, the whole getting things done strategy, and the tactics that we learned. So that was really helpful for me, and I was able to kind of implement that long term as well. Although there's always room for improvement. But what also like stood out for me is just the fact that like I have so many visions, so to say, that sometimes it gets overwhelming and things fall like in between the cracks, and also that it might be that I'm overwhelming people around me with my all over the place and so many ideas, and so it might be a challenge for me to keep up with all those goals that I set, and also it can become a burden of others, which yeah, which has been really, I think, what I can see also. And like I pat myself on the shoulder in a way, because what I've been focusing on lately, or maybe the last year or 2 years, was really to kind of keenly look around for signs and signals of when things don't run smooth, whether it's like in relationships or in general things or directions that I'm taking in my life, and that has been kind of helping to alleviate that situation, um, as I have been trying to like be more careful about putting too much things to other people who might not want or have the capacity to take on those things, and then that will create stress. But then also to kind of, I know that my focus has to be to kind of narrow down my vision and really keep a focus on those things that I need to get done first. So in the sense of the getting things done method, like the prioritization is something that's a big lesson that I'm it's a big chunk that I'm still chewing on, so to say. And I think that will make the most impact for me, to be able to identify, um, out of the many tasks, of the many projects that I put down and I write on and I work on all of them at the same time, and I make progress on all levels. But the progress, is comparatively small. If I would just focus on one or two things, then I surely would make more progress on those ends. So I guess it's a choice still, whether you want to spread far and make progress on many sides at the same time, but take time to come to the end of all those projects, and or if you would want to narrow your focus on one or two things and then
So
get those
then
done
one day
quickly.
you'll be 60, and then you're going to be a master of everything. Suddenly you will come from the master of nothing, having like all these different paths that you're walking on all at once, and then suddenly you'll coalesce into this magical being that is you,
So yeah, that should be a nice moment too.
right?
Or maybe I learn to just focus on one or two things that really will make a difference in one sector, and then ride on the success of those, which surely also has its positive effects, because if you can ride on the height like of a success, even if it's like a small success, then that will surely encourage you to move on and to keep on moving and focus on other things. But I guess it also depends, like if you have on your personality, if you have the kind of resilience of sticking through things and keeping on going, and if you can focus for a long time, if you have that attention span, then that's certainly a possibility to spread out far. But But then, if you depend on having, small successes like on continuously in order to motivate yourself, then that might be the better strategy. How is it for you?
I guess it's you, Deirdre, because it switched to you. How is it for you?
Oh, I just went, oh. like, like I was listening to him. How it's for me. I guess it for me, it was kind of really confronting. I knew it was there, but seeing it kind of written out plainly made it more concrete. I can kind of put my finger on what it is and I can call it a name. That really helped. It has a definition that helped too. And so I can now move towards a goal of where I know what I need to do to help fix those issues, which is for me, I say I like going for next action steps. So I'm in the process of a project. I always like to have a post-it on there, and I put what's next. And so I'll list that, but to define it so that I know that I am doing those next steps, that I can see the logic and I can see the benefit in that process.
So is it for you also that you're feeling overwhelmed oftentimes by the many different tasks or ideas that you have, or are you able to kind of narrow and focus on one thing at a time?
She's
and
got
kind of
4
block out-
children. Of course, she feels
I'm
overwhelmed.
not. Yeah, for me, it was, I'm not in a point in my life where I can focus too heavily on goals. What was it? I can't remember exactly what it was called. But it's I'm in crisis mode at the moment. So basically, all I'm doing is just maintaining everything. I'm not actually. So I've got a lot of balls that I'm juggling at the same time.
Well,
And
that in itself is a
usually
goal, isn't it? To keep those balls in the air.
Yeah, and that's where my life's at the moment. But it's knowing that and going, okay, that's okay, and then kind of going, okay, what energy do I have to kind of keep these balls afloat up in the air? And that needs to, okay, this ball is heavier. It's going to be coming down a lot more often than this ball, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
does.
that makes a lot of sense. I especially relate because that's one of the stages you go through when you're trying to recover from some sort of traumatic event, where you just kind of have to relive all of those feelings, and you're in crisis mode for a minute, and the goal is to try and figure your way out of it healthy this time. So your body will reset to what it used to, and it's an insane thing to try to explain to people because you just you don't have the words to explain. It throws off the communication between everyone you care about, completely isolates you, and then you're just like, I'm just trying to make it through the day. My big thing is I have trouble not just setting routines. I'm actually pretty good at setting routines. I'm not good at following through because there's something like I wrote down that I that I was supposed to be at the meeting, yet like there was no time in my day. And looking back, I'm like, I totally skipped over that. That just blanked out of my mind. And I had a bunch of other things. I got everything else that I needed accomplished. I can't remember how that ties in there, but basically, like doing the same thing every week or the same thing every day is strange to me, and I'm still trying to get in the habit of reevaluating what my actual daily habits are and seeing if I can tweak those. So yeah, the goals are much shorter right now. It's like little baby steps and not even like where do I want to be in 5-10 years maybe.
So
Yeah.
What kind of strategies you guys have to overcome like crisis mode? But that's a
hang
part of
on.
planning as
I
well,
just
right?
want to say something before we go into that. I want to just say something about crisis mode, because crisis mode doesn't have to be the death of your beloved, or doesn't have to be something so major that you can't get over it. Crisis mode can happen to you at any time for any reason, and it could be a little crisis mode or it could be a big crisis mode. But
And you never
sometimes
know.
you never know, and sometimes like breaking your favorite cup that you had for 30 years could cause you like grieving for several days, even though it's just a stupid physical object. So
Or someone could say something playfully, and you're like,
I
don't
know
ever.
what they meant. I know what he meant.
They freak out. Like, that happens all the time. Yeah. You were asking, did you finish?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
that we include all the different crises in the crisis mode thing, not just
Yeah, because
like
crisis mode, that's kind of what I was getting at, is even if you're not in a crisis situation, part of recovering from trauma is actually like being in crisis mode and trying to figure out how to get out of crisis mode. Some of the techniques, one of the best techniques that I use is like breathing and tapping. Agnieszka actually told me that one. She was like, tap here, and that one helps a lot. And the exhaling longer than you inhale, that basically will actually calm your nervous system. Also, physical contact, like especially on your hands, warm water on your hands will help. And getting a hug. I know it sounds so silly, but actually, the physical contact of your shoulders and your back being held tightly will calm your nervous system. So if you can like back yourself into a corner and hug yourself, it'll do the same thing.
No, those are great strategies right there, and I like especially because, again, like considering ourselves holistic beings, with physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual qualities, then if we go into crisis mode, then that crisis mode never affects only one of those aspects of who we are, but all of them. So it would make sense, or it sounds logical to me, that we also address the crisis then from all those different angles. So if you can do something, physical, like giving a hug, if we have some ideas, some strategies how to put ourselves in positive emotions, in a positive emotional state, and then also even mentally, like have like a list of things to, I probably would go back, actually to the contrary, I would go back to situations in my life that were like really challenging. I was like, oh, come on, this, like, I've been to much worse than that. I've seen, experienced much worse, and what is this gonna do? And then actually focus on, wow, like actually I'm really blessed, and I have so much to be grateful for. And, like, this is nothing compared to what happened, 10 years ago. And so on.
I like that you said that, Dennis. Thank you, about remembering when things were in crisis mode and what you did about it. That's all valuable knowledge. Like, yeah, things have been, a lot more difficult than what they are now for me. And I handled it really well then.
And you were younger
I
and
just,
less experienced back then.
That's an idea that brings me a lot of actual self-esteem. Like, that's mine. And that's a strange, like, it's strange because I always want to follow up something with like an even more profound statement, especially when I get a good reaction. But that's all I need to say is that's mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is a weird feeling.
So there's another thing about crisis mode that I want to mention. Since we mentioned all those other options, I would like to mention one more, and that's the amygdala hijack. Now, in my experience, this happens more often to women than to men, but it happens to men as well. Most often I've seen it in men when they lose a job or something like that threatens their ego happens, where your brain starts going in a loop and you think the same things over and over and over again, or you want to say the same things over and over and over again. So that's what happens inside your brain when that happens, is your frontal lobe, the processes that normally go in the analysis center of your brain, sort of gets shut down, and the fight or flight or freeze gets activated, not installed, but activated. And then suddenly your brain starts going in circles. Like, I remember when I was Samantha's age, Willow's age, I was always afraid my husband would be gone a lot in the evenings, and I never knew when he was coming home. And not that he ever did anything bad, but I was always afraid he was going to get hit, like get drunk and get hit by a car or something. And it would go like, it would like tick-tock until midnight. Like, as soon as midnight came around, say he said I'd be home by midnight, 12:05, my brain would start going, oh my gosh, something happened to him. Oh my gosh, you know what I mean? And it would start going in circles. So what you do when that happens to your brain, there's a very simple way. Do math. Because you cannot physically do math while you're in fight or flight. It's not the same part of your brain. So you just like 2 plus 44, 47 minus 15. Math, arithmetic. Because your brain has to break out every time you're asking a question about math and go back into the frontal lobe. It's a trick.
That's a really interesting strategy. I'm not sure if it would work for me though, because doing math probably would put me back into an even more traumatic state.
Yeah, I was like, that explains why I was never good at math.
Well, it doesn't have to be math, right? It doesn't have to be math, but it has to be something that forces your brain into back to analysis, where you have to compare and contrast.
Yeah,
Music
that's
is
really
a good
interesting.
one
The first time I hear about it.
because it's listening to
I don't know.
mathematics.
It was the coaching
For me,
school.
when I used to start catastrophizing like that, I just write out the catastrophe. I just like, okay, let's settle this. I'm just gonna go for it, and I'm just gonna.
That's what I don't like about cognitive therapy, right there. Why do you have to wallow in that? Why do you have to rub it all over yourself? Do math.
No, it's to see the illogic in it. It's to go, okay, let's just go with it. Let's write it all out.
I'm gonna end up under a bridge by myself for the rest of my life.
See, I have a different kind of like hijack. It's more of it makes me immobile sometimes. It happens especially like when I'm home alone. And I've noticed it happens more when I either am planning to shower or I want to shower or I'm thinking of showering. And I have this strange feeling that like while I'm not looking, someone has like snuck into the house. And I'm like, this is completely irrational. And I will tell myself, this is irrational. You're being irrational. And then it gets so like intense, like my body will like be on guard and I can't focus on anything else. I cannot do math. Oh, God forbid. If you make me do math, I'm getting it wrong. And then it's just going to frustrate me more. And then I'm going to cry.
It actually doesn't matter if you get the right answers. All that matters is that you try to get the answer.
Yeah. But then
what do you do in those moments? Because it sounds like it still does affect you on some level.
It doesn't happen like as bad anymore or nearly as long. I've noticed music with less like it's more of like a meditation and it's a frequency. More music like that, and definitely not music with vocals. Music with vocals, unless there's certain kinds. Like I have to be really picky. And yeah, there's just like there's no getting it out of my head until I have like gone through the entire house and looked through the entire house. And then I'm fine. But then, 20, 30 minutes later, I'll put on my headphones and it'll start again. And I'm like on a loop and I have to do the same thing until it's like getting out of, like, not like out of hand, but like it's annoying to me because I'm like, okay, now I've looked at the house 3 times. When am I going to give this up? So then my parts start arguing with each other. They're like, are you crazy?
No.
I don't think it's crazy. For me, checking or doing some kind of proactive work would actually be soothing. So for whatever it is like that, I wouldn't call it like, oh, I'm being so OCD by walking around the house. It's like, I have people here that I'm trying to protect. And so I'm just checking on things. And so I'm going to be in a good mood while I walk around and not beat myself up because I need to check the top handle one more time before I go to bed. People might tease me about that or whatever, but if that helps me realize that there isn't anybody able to walk in the house and I can go downstairs and just relax, even if I check something 3 or 4 times, I think that how you're treating it yourself can be changed and not necessarily the behavior, because I think it helps to be proactive. Like if, for me, like avoiding a crisis would be not necessarily the coronavirus itself, but I think how people are going to react to it if they hear on the local news that there's some outbreak in their town. So I may go buy some extra beans and water, not because I'm scared of the crisis of the virus, but like how other people might respond. And doing that will help me calm down so that I don't have to get into a loop of like, can't actually find food if there is a
I
crisis.
like how he rephrased that. How he went, oh, instead of it being like, oh God, I can't believe I'm doing this again, but I need to keep my peace of mind at to make sure everything's okay because I have people I need to protect. So this is okay. I'm just making sure that my family is safe. Like
He's using his
that's really cool.
archetypes.
And it's really
Yeah.
confronting yourself as well, which is the same. I think what you went into detail a little earlier when you said, oh, when it is overwhelming, then instead of blocking it or trying to focus on something else, you actually write it down. You go into it, or kind of what you were saying that instead of like trying to I don't know not watch TV, not know anything about it, or you actually listen to the stuff when you know something is going on, but you take an action. So it's like taking action and focusing on it by doing something that will actually confront you with the situation that's going on and taking some positive action. And that's something like I've been using for pain as well. So instead of trying to, oh no, it's not hurting, it's not bad, it's like to really like, okay, oh, this is actually hurting really badly. And like, you focus on the pain and you go into it, or even like, if somebody gets hurt at classes, okay, there's like some little tricks that you can do. It's like, okay, where is it hurting? And then you associate it, with different objects or even with colors. And then by focusing on it after a while, you see if it changed, if it changed in size, if you can make it bigger or smaller and play around that. That works with children nicely as well. So instead of trying to block it away, you go right into it and you focus on the problem itself and overcome it through that, or with fears that you might have as well.
That's a good technique.
That's a really good. Yeah, it is. You can do that with emotional pain too.
Yeah, absolutely. But just to clarify, the math thing wasn't to distract you from the issue at hand. It was just to engage the fullness of your brain in your thinking, because once your neural pathways are back to the frontal lobe, you can have other thoughts about the issue that was holding you in hijack. Like, it allows you to have more rational thought about it. So it doesn't actually stop you. Yeah, it doesn't actually stop you or repress the feeling. All it does is it opens up your brain to other possible thoughts other than that one that's stuck on a loop. Like, maybe he didn't die. Maybe, like, it's not positive. I don't have the death certificate in my hand. Therefore, he didn't die, because the only way to be sure that the dude died is if I had the death certificate, right? There's physical evidence that he may not have died. So therefore, acting as if he had died, I'm talking about my ex-husband when I was some Mantha's age. Had he died, I probably would be the first one notified, right? They'd probably phone me because I'm his emergency contact in his phone. So if he really were hit by a car and some ambulance picked him up, I would be told. But those thoughts are not available to me as long as I'm in a hijack. All I hear is, oh my gosh, he's probably dead. Oh my gosh, he's probably dead, right? That's all I hear. Because that's what the repetitious thing does to your brain.
So is that what the technique is used for, to stop yourself? To just instantly
to stop the cycle. Change your thoughts. You can still think about the issue, but then your brain starts doing more than just repeating the same sentence.
And yet another way, or another perspective on it would be to come to the realization that the one who is being afraid, who is worrying, who is,
maybe talk louder because it's not switching. Okay, thank you.
You get it? Okay.
Yeah.
No, where I was going at is that another perspective is that when you're in that mode of worrying, of being fearful, and you're able to watch yourself and to observe yourself, and to recognize that the one that is worrying is never the real you, but it's kind of it's your mind, it's the noise of your mind, the ups and downs, the waves that you have not been able to still. If you can go in a mode where you can observe that, and if you then can be or become the observer instead of being the one that identifies with all the mind noise that is going on, then that is also like a shortcut, or way where you can cut straight through to okay, you're not even fighting it and you're just accepting, okay, this is going on in my mind, but it's just my mind, but there's something beside my mind, something bigger, something who I really and truly am. If I'm able to center into that beingness, then that is a way of overcoming it in every moment really in your life. And then again, it boils down to plan for situations like that, and to figure out with your life experience, with your wisdom, like what kind of things, or even actions also, because there's different angles of getting to that point as well, what would you have to do, think, who would you have to be in order to center in that beingness, so to say? What brings you there? And then maybe make a physical list of those things, or like recall moments of your life where you have been truly centered, and where you felt that you were just in the moment, and that nothing could shake you up, that nothing could kind of like the noise in the signal, basically, when you were tuned into the signal, straight and clear signal and no noise. And what did you have to do? What was happening? What was going on in that moment? And maybe you can bring back parts of that situation in order to help you center if you kind of out of balance.
Yep. Yeah, and I just lost my train of thought. It was there just a second ago. It was important too. Sorry. Continue.
No. Yeah, it'll come back.
I was gonna say, leave
Dennis,
the window
quick,
open.
talk again. Quick, Dennis, talk again. See if she remembers. Quick.
Oh, yes, I know what it was. I was wondering why I was so filled with anxiety when I was 29, but somehow I'm no longer filled with anxiety. And this year, because of Eric being away for work so much, I've probably been alone for half the year, like in the house, with the yard being full of woods and scary things. Like if I was 29 living in this house by myself, I'd be like, every night I'd be thinking about some weird thing. And I can tell you guys that I've thought about somebody, and the downstairs basement door sometimes doesn't latch properly, so somebody could actually literally walk in from the outside, from the backyard, and come up the stairs. But now that I'm old, I know that they would have to deal with me when they got up to the top of the stairs. Right?
It sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself, It sounds like not everybody would take the same path from 29, like you said, to where you're at now, but actually it sounds like you've analyzed quite a bit of what you might have been doing to yourself, which is choosing to hyper focus on these particular thoughts, that anybody could choose to focus on any one of the most horrible things happening in their environment at any particular point, and we'd all go insane. I think one of the abilities of a human being that's quite magnificent is our ability to not, pay attention to certain threats that may be ongoing, or in some ways this is a huge detriment to the species as well, and some of us go crazy trying to point out some of these things to other people that might be more important on our list than they are on their list. You can go into any number. One of the things that you guys were talking about when I jumped on here, I think this call, it was vaccinations, or any particular thing that you'd want to hyper focus on. But so I've had more anxious filled times in my life, and the same thing, it was more or less self kind of generated with feedback loops that were thoughts
But
that
you're
may have been very true.
How old
It
are
can be
you,
very true.
Tyler? Sorry.
I'm 34, so
Okay.
I could relate to being a little bit, like you said, around 29 to now has been a big change. So it could just be maturing, and as you get older, certain things change, but not for everybody. Like, some people end up in a mental institution, so there is a more extreme path to
but
go
there's
with
also
that
the
problem.
possibility of a mutation, like your brain doesn't work properly. Sometimes people end up in a mental institution, not because they drove themselves crazy, but because their brain is deficient.
We don't want to discount that. That's for
right.
sure.
But the thing, the one thing that really made me a lot less anxious that I experienced was a past life regression. I know it sounds totally woo and crazy and way out there, but having that past life regression and actually like being hypnotized, closing my eyes and seeing myself as these other people kind of awakened me to the timelessness of my being and the irrelevance of, like, so what? So a guy breaks into my house and kills me. Oh, well, is that really that big of a deal? Right?
There's a
more
good
like
age.
self-knowledge.
There's a good what?
Yeah. If there's an age, so most people your age generally go through some type of maturity, and what generally happens is that they will either go get a divorce, or what happens is what's termed the midlife crisis. They get to a point in their life where they've done all the right steps, progressed through schooling, university, house, marriage, and then they get to, which is your age bracket, and then they realize that half their life's over and they haven't actually done anything that they wanted to. So it is something, you, whatever you're noticing, it is some type of maturity that I hope to look forward to, that where it's just like, I don't give a crap anymore. I'm going to be who I want to be for once.
People always thought I didn't give a crap, though. Even when I was in my 20s, people thought I didn't give a crap, but I did.
Everyone's always said that to me my entire life, and they're shocked when I'm like, no, I actually gave a lot of crap. Like, it meant a lot to me. But I've already noticed, I used to have a way worse anxiety, to the point where, like, if I didn't know how to hide it so well, I would say it's crippling. Like, it's terrible. And I've already seen a decrease in it, and it makes me feel better. Like, because I'll have my friends tell me that that's what they see when they see me. They see someone who is bold and does what they want, and I don't know, the way they describe me, it's nice. Makes me feel like I'm achieving that goal. I've already noticed, though, I feel a lot more comfortable, and there's a lot of things in my life that I was just like, I don't care about that anymore. And then there were a lot of things that my husband didn't care about, and I was like, I still care about that. So it took me a while to let go of those things, but I don't know, I think it's been good.
Yeah, it's funny because we don't like, so first question is this: what is our society doing that so many children, when they get into their 20s, are so filled with anxiety about their day-to-day living? That's my question, first question. Because
that is a big and complicated
I'm not gonna say this is the sole reason, but of course I'm gonna take it here and be like, there's a lot of people who are very traumatized. There's a whole bunch of them, and anxiety
but
is
if
like
our society was really truly focused on empowerment and elevating the individual, it's supposed to be about individuality. Right?
I wouldn't agree with that. Because I've seen people, what happens when everybody gets an award, everybody gets a trophy, you're going to be wonderful no matter what. Then they stop trying.
But you're talking about empty platitudes, not about empowering the individual. Like, in autonomy, each individual is empowered within their abilities, but not just.
But right now, the family is being, like, the parents are not the ones educating the children. The ones who are educating the children are also, I mean, I'm not going to say that everyone who's an educator is an abusive person, but they're enforcing a system that doesn't empower children to be adults. But
that's where the responsibility of the parents falls in. Because, okay, the state is teaching at this level. You want your children to be taught at this level. That's this from here to here. That's where the parents need to step up, right? Unfortunately, because that's just the reality of things. And that said,
but imagine
knowing that, I never had enough courage to have children.
If those children are traumatized, the parents are probably traumatized just as likely, and therefore they're like, they have the opportunity and the chance, but they're not concerned about that because they're trying to control the chaos within.
So this is why Raising Excellence has been created, to help elevate adults and bring them to the place where elementary school should have really brought them to, right? And ourselves included.
I would say it's a sense of getting to being 18 and having no meaning in your life. Like, meaning, we're sold meaning. I just got to buy meaning from the shop. I've just got to buy meaning. I don't need to really look at what I want to do with my life, where I want to go, why I'm here.
Well, you could never be a singer, dear, because your voice is just not good enough. And writers don't really make any money, so you couldn't do that. Might as well be an accountant.
It's more like emulate the people that you see you think that are living the life that you want. And that's usually on billboards, it's in magazines, on the TV.
That's right.
So to bring it back
That's what
to
they're
the plan
told.
again,
We need
handling
men.
life with planning.
Step 1 of
So
plan. Simplify all the junk in your life.
so on a schedule, on those various segments that is part of ourselves, we have what you were hinting at earlier, Agnieszka, was like, accepting that basically, it's not only you making a plan, but there is a greater plan. There is, a timeless, divine part of you, that is ever there, will always be
So
there. That,
following the call
whether,
of your belly, of your solar plexus, where it
well,
leads you.
basically it's about acknowledging that there's something timeless within you, that you maybe are not only the one who's making plans, but that you are actually part of a bigger plan which is manifesting through you, and therefore, being able to rest into that. And then, it doesn't really matter so much again whether, a guy comes in and kills you or not, in the seeing looking at it from like a broader perspective. On the other hand, and I think the importance is the choice that we have, and to actually realize and know that we have a choice of taking different perspectives, because that is one possibility, that we can take, and that might suit you, or that might suit you at a certain point of your life, or, but the next person, would grasp a different perspective. But I think what these possibilities is that the awareness of having that choice of taking different perspectives and different points of view, maybe even at different times of the day or within our life. And another one that came to my mind, Tyler, when you were talking earlier, was the common factors of people that survived traumatic situations, whether it's like some kind of survival situation, or some kind of plane crash, or the concentration camps, or whatever it is. And many report that there's actually just like a few common factors of those people that made them go through those things, and came out alive, and came out even sane on the other end of whatever they had to experience. And one of them was the awareness, or knowing of why they had to go through. So they had to have a reason. So they have, whether it was the reason to see their children grow, or I don't know, to kiss their wife again, or
A
whatever
reason
reason
to
they made them,
live.
a reason to live, yeah.
That
And
that's
that
what
brought
they
me
did.
back
They
to.
talked about a reason for live.
So from that perspective, then it is, you making a plan. Okay, I have this plan to see my son again, or whatever it is. So that is also, that's part of planning. And like when we talk about preparing for survival situations, let's talk about, for example, self-defense situations, where you want to prepare for that, and where you want to kind of jumpstart your instinctive reactions also, or like piggyback on your instincts that you have already, and do something with those instinctive reactions that is actually helpful, and that will increase your survivability in a traumatic situation like that. Then that is also an aspect of us, like we are also instinctive beings, we are physical beings. So that is a perspective that we also can take on, and that you can actually even practice and train yourself for, which is even, I would say, like, or in the trainings that I did, is much more important than learning some kind of physical movements. But first, you have to know, like, why are you here? Why do you have to go through this situation? Why do you have to survive this situation if you don't have like a strong will to live, and if you don't even know
Yeah.
why, you have to get out of this, or you have to go get around those three guys right now. Like, if you realize, if you have thought about, if this guy even just push you in the road in a truck, run over you, you're not gonna see your children again. You're not gonna do ABC, what you plan for your life to do. So that is also, a perspective that we can take. And I think each one of those perspectives, whether we rest in our physical being, or our emotional, mental, or like in the spiritual being, has its place in life. And we are all those aspects. We manifest physically, emotionally, and in all those levels. So it's good to have the awareness of the choice, and the ability to switch in between them, because in one situation it might be great, it's always a good thing to rest in your spiritual being, and to have that background assurance that there's something timeless within you. But sometimes it might be also healthy, and it might be good to to just jumpstart your instincts, and to have a few physical reactions also, that will just bring you through whatever situation comes up in.
Or you might end up like that
That
guy who drowned on the roof because he wouldn't take the helicopter because God was going to save him. You know, when there was a flood, this is the whole story. There was a flood, and this guy knew that God would save him. God had a plan for him, so he would save him. And so when the firefighters came to his house, he's like, no, I don't need you. God's saving me. And then when the boat came because it was a flood, right? So the boat came to save him. He's like, no, God's going to save him. And then the helicopter came, and he's like, no, God's going to save me. And then he died, and he went to heaven, and he asked God, why didn't you save me? And God said, well, I sent you the firefighters, I sent you a boat, and then I sent you a helicopter, and you didn't take any of these things, so I couldn't save you. You have free will.
Yeah, and that's part of the issue with planning, is if you're too stuck on your plan, or if you have a wrong expectation of something, and then, things aren't working out in the way that you expected them to. I could see that kind of causing a lot of anxiety, like we were talking about earlier. So it might just be that your expectation of the world is off, or, like in that story, if you expect that God is going to show himself or herself in these different forms, and things aren't really that way, and you may end up, completely missing the overall perspective, or a different perspective you could have taken on something. Which to me, part of the fallacy, just to tie that in really quick, Deirdre, and then we'll pass it to you, would just be the the true Scotsman fallacy, like saying, well, that's not the real, God wouldn't act in this way, or in any way that you could apply that fallacy, being too idealistic about something. And like, to me, it's a very socialistic type of way of looking at things. Like it seems like it comes out of socialism in a way, like, that's not the way that the real socialism would work, and in reality it would work this way, or communism would work this way. And so again, just being very idealistic about something and not looking at the downside of it, internally, I think can cause a lot of chaos and anxiety.
Yeah,
it points out conditioning, right? It's a kind of conditioned way of believing, oh, God is only going to appear like this, like I think it should be, or socialism is only going to be like I think it should be, but in reality things just happen different ways. So
to me, it looks like not living in the moment. If I'm not living in the moment, then I'm going to miss things. If I'm living in my head, I'm going to miss things. I try not to think logically. If I need to think logically about something because I need more information, I'll go, okay, that needs more time, and I'll go through a whole critical thinking process. I'll sit down and I'll write it out, and because that, there's some time for me, I've noticed there's times where critical thinking is necessary, but I can't apply that with my moment to moment awareness, because I will miss the moment.
So you have to do a blend.
You're not like processing the trivium method when you're trying to enjoy just the birds outside or whatever, like you're not collecting grammar, you're just out being there,
Okay. I was thinking, what I was thinking of was with all my balls in my hand, and so with the kids, so I have a lot of housework, and it's a pain in the bum, and I don't like it. It takes up a lot of time, and it's just rinse and repeat, literally every day in, day out. It's either laundry, dishes, groceries are the main ones, and then it's vacuuming. But there's nothing I can do about that. I need to do that. If I don't do that, my house is going to get dirty, disgusting, and vermin can come in and all types of awful things. So I need to maintain.
And in Australia, the vermin can actually kill you. So
to help with that drudgery of it, and to so I don't get down with it. Get down with it. Do I want to get down
with it? That's what I was going to say. You got to get down with it. It's all about how you go about it. And if I can do that and be in a bad mood, and I do. I'm not perfect, but other times I might just be kind of more lighthearted about the drudgery, and it changes the whole task. So yeah, I mean, again, the expectation I have of something, like if I'm expecting to go to the store and have a blast, maybe I should just go and plan to kind of successfully execute it while not allowing myself to fall into a negative blunder in my head. I mean, that could be a success in itself, just going, not allowing that to occur. Even though, I hear you, like the day to day gets to a point where some days, literally there's a lot more motivation that needs to go on to just get through it. But
I
that's
found a
the
way to make
moment.
groceries a blast. I found. You want to
Is
know?
that to go on Discord?
Yeah.
No, well, yeah, I've done that before, but no, I found that my best friend who lives in Victoria too, we don't have much time to spend with together because she's doing her master's right now, and I'm doing this and a bunch of other things, so there are always conflicts. And so what we figured out is that we both have to go grocery shopping at least once a week, and so that's time that we can for sure spend together and still get our groceries done. So now we've been trying to schedule our grocery shopping together so that even though we're both busy and we don't have time to see each other, we can at least go for coffee and then buy some food and hang out for an hour or two. So
I used to do that with my best friend back in Nebraska, and it made grocery shopping we've actually commiserated over it. We're like, I miss you. I miss going grocery shopping with you. Like, it was so much fun.
you can
we'd buy
still do
something.
it. Call her up and talk on the phone while you're grocery shopping.
Yeah, but right now she's got a 2-year-old, and 2-year-old requires all the attention. And I'm like, all right.
See, that's the difference. I have 4 kids. My away time grocery shopping is like peace. It's like it's okay. Everything's all clean. Everything's all organized when I go to the grocery store. Well, what I was meaning with the cleaning is that if I'm stuck in that, oh my gosh, there's a pile of laundry again. It's like day 2 because we've had a whole heap of rain, and they like went through like 2 sets of clothes because I like them going out and playing in the mud. And so that means a lot more laundry for me, a lot more towels. But that's okay. It means that they wanted that joy, and I wanted them to have that experience. It just means more work for me. And so
I think she froze.
my son coming.
Oh, there we go.
I miss out on things like my son coming to me and go, oh, Mum, I want to play shark game. I want to make a shark. And so he'll cut out a shark and like staple it and put stuffing in it and then have a shark game. But I have to stop and help him do things like staple it or use the scissors. But I get to have those like little moments. And if I was like in my head, I'd be like, no, I'm busy right now. No, I can't. I'm feeling tired because I got to get this done. And I know that because I've done that before, and it didn't make me a happy person. So I really try to practice that moment-to-moment awareness, and to make choices that I want to make that I know are in line with my values, especially in situations where I have no control. I need to get that laundry done. There's no real control over that. I cannot do it, and it's just going to get messy. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I really don't.
Yeah, you are.
You're doing the same thing I was doing the first couple episodes when I was like, am I making any sense? Is anyone else following? Because you kind of trail off, and yeah, you're making a lot of sense.
Okay, great.
So we should show the fallacy of the week and maybe discuss it more in detail. So everybody got the picture, the no true Scotsman fallacy. I will show it to our listeners. There you go. So the fallacy is, so what are fallacies? Can some
created us? Oh. What's your day?
They're distortions. In arguments. So either you're trying to do something that somebody's trying to tell you is truth, and you don't like it for some reason, so you attack them, or that you're telling somebody else something that's truth, and they just throw some type of attack to degrade your argument.
I pulled it up online, and the official definition is a mistaken belief, especially one based on an unsound argument. Also, a failure in reasoning, which renders an argument invalid. Faulty reasoning, misleading, or unsound argument.
So on the picture we have pigs only, and there's a little pig trying to get into the... This is what our listeners are viewing, right? So there's a little pig trying to get into the place that says pigs only, but the bouncer says only true pigs can come in. So he's a pig, but he's not a true pig, right? So we use that fallacy when we talk about a true patriot or a good girl. If you were a good girl, you would do that, right? Only good girls can do that.
I hated hearing that as a child. I was like, when are you guys going to learn that I am not that?
I'm not a good girl. I don't aspire to be a good girl. As a matter of fact, anybody in this family a black sheep? No. Yep, it's mine now.
I don't know. For me, good girl was anything that is less than a nun is a bad girl.
Yeah, that's how it was for. Well, it depended on who we were around. If we were around like grandparents, yes, those standards applied. Especially if if my grandparents' friends or family was around. But like playing in the mud when I was little at my house, rules were totally different. So it was kind of confusing as a child, I think.
Yeah. It is confusing. Everybody seems to have different rules. And yeah. Even my own mom's sisters had different rules than me, and that I found it very confusing.
In one way that I find this interesting, I mean, the ways you guys are talking about the fallacies, ways that I wasn't, so that's interesting. But I look at it more politically for whatever reason, and
Because that's your
like with Bernie,
slant.
well, with
Women
Bernie,
think
not really. I
women
just
go to
think of
social
it.
networks.
Yeah,
men
yeah. You guys
usually
go to
go to
social
political.
networks or more like internal dialogue and stuff, but like a Bernie Sanders, type economic system that would obviously, in my opinion, just completely not work and doesn't make any sense, and ways of operating the economy, or even like central planning the world economy, which um they that's where I see this most clearly, is like, well, that's not true. If you pointed out any kind of negative aspect that to any kind of like 20-year-old that's just kind of getting into college and they're being taught a lot of the garbage that may go on there, about economics, and they may, per se, well, that's not true socialism. And so that's what I see in this, is like the no true Scotsman, like, well, you're like, well, no, there's these clear issues with that line of thinking, and they're, very kind of
Or
utopian
I
way.
like.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
and it's okay.
I was gonna say it's also like women who are like, you're not a real feminist because you're like, well, men are circumcised. And that's pretty bad. And they're like, you're upstaging women and all of their suffering. You're not a real feminist. I'm like, okay, I'm just pointing out that there's some illogical reasoning here.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a shortcut to thinking. It's
It
like bypassing critical thinking. It's trying to categorize somebody into a easy to
and it's
understand set of things, rather than
yeah,
really
and
dynamically looking at
it's
anything. Yeah.
it's my generalizations. It's not a generalization that like all women have
Vaginas.
boobs. That's a generalization. But it's what the no true Scotsman is it's my generalizations. So my generalization is that well, all cats eat mice. So my cat definitely did not eat your bird.
Right.
What comes to my mind with these fallacies is a quote from Yuri Krishnamurti, who was in that quote talking about how everything, whether you point out, oh, you're a woman, or you're a man, or you're from Germany, you're from Canada, you're from the US, or, if you point out nationalities, differences in gender, skin color, whatever it is, to the very core of it, it's always violence. It breeds violence because you focus on separation. You're separating people because of X, Y, Z. And in the end of it, what stems is violence at the bottom of that. So that's what came to my mind when you read that fallacy.
Well, it breeds frustration because it doesn't allow you to communicate freely. And I think it was Richard Grove who says aggression is always preceded by frustration. Or is that John Taylor Gatto? I can't remember.
They're
Probably a
they're
combination
kind
of
of
both,
blended as one, right?
I
Yeah.
remember if you have said a quote, it is forever stuck in my mind that you own that quote. Like that's your quote. So I'll be like, oh yeah, these are this person's words.
That's kind of a fallacy right there. I mean, just
It
even
is.
quotes themselves. No, I'm just kidding. Even quotes themselves, right? Like we put it like, oh, this person said a quote. It's like, you can always go sometimes find that it's not true, or that it's several people that it's sourced to.
Or that
So
person
again,
was
kind of
just
like,
repeating someone else from down the hall.
Yeah, or like
My
you think that
favorite.
person's a bastard, and like John Taylor Gatto is a good example. He quotes like Nelson Rockefeller a lot and other people that on the other side of it, you're like, well, wait a minute, like we're not supposed to be putting that person on a pedestal, but he missed a lot of that, but doesn't mean that his
But the
writing wasn't
thing is,
great.
okay,
So
so can a bad guy not have a good quote though?
it's
That's
true. So
that's a
maybe I
weird.
was, doing the same thing.
It's
That's
the
kind of a
Without
Wagner
weird.
thing. Go ahead.
Is it? Is that another fallacy?
Well, no, the Wagner thing, because a lot of people don't like to listen to Wagner because he was a Nazi,
Mm.
but he was
Yeah,
still
or like,
making good
Or
Henry
music.
the
Ford. Henry
or the
Ford was
fact.
a Nazi sympathizer, but a lot of people really think he was a great entrepreneur and had a lot of good things to say,
And I
you
think
know.
that I can listen to Wagner and enjoy his music without like falling into his philosophical slant.
Yeah.
Like the music doesn't brainwash me to be becoming a Nazi. Not that I listen to his music a lot. It's just a theory, right? Is your painting going to be judged by your thoughts about misogyny, or is your music going to be judged by your thoughts about how long people should
Right.
live in prison? You know what I mean? Like
I think those
Yeah.
they're
opinions
separate.
definitely
I'd
color.
I'd have to say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and there's a reason why that saying exists.
So
And the
you're
picture
on
that
the other
people
side.
paint in their heads is so much more in detail than you could ever imagine.
That's true.
And you can't control that either. What somebody else is going to paint
Trust
in
me,
their
women
head.
have tried.
So when John Taylor Gatto put in a quote, maybe he said, oh, I shouldn't put this here because people will think that I sympathize with everything this guy said. And, there's a higher kind of maturity that says, well, no, even if people do think that I'm saying this and that, I'm not really. I'm just putting a quote from Nelson Rockefeller. I'm not saying I agree with no. And maybe you should have to put that boilerplate, caveat at the beginning of things like, hey, just because I quote somebody, it doesn't mean I agree with everything they ever said. And you may repeat that in your shows
That's
if you're
a
quoting a lot of people.
that's
See,
a
so
shame that you
many
have to even
people,
mention that,
but so many
because
people quote
I try to
Gandhi.
take things as just is. That's you're just saying that
Right.
because
It's a
you
shame,
like
but
that quote.
Not that person, yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like Gandhi is a weird example too because he did some weird things, and after finding out other things about him, I'm like, oh. But his quotes can still be good. But then there was a lot of weird things about Gandhi. Some of the things
I
he
mean,
said when he was in Africa were just like, oh, really?
we do
I
it with
remember one of
music all
his
the
quotes earlier
time.
when you were talking. He said, for some people, God can only manifest as a grain of rice. I thought about that
For some
when you
people,
were talking.
what?
God can only manifest himself through a grain of rice.
That's Gandhi said that?
Mm-hmm. As far as
Not sure how I feel about that. There could be so many different meanings for that.
well, I thought about it when you were talking about the guy on the rooftop, So
Oh,
God
yeah.
kind of manifested, himself with a helicopter and this and that. So for some people, it's a grain of rice because that's just the only way they will be able to, or that's what they need in order to make the next step in their life or to survive the next hour.
Yeah. Anyway, I think the time has come, you guys. Like, we could talk for another 3 hours. Who's in? 3 more hours?
I haven't eaten yet.
Okay.
If we're doing this, I gotta take a break.
No, we're not doing this. I'm just joking. I was just making shit up.
24/7 channel.
We'll just talk about stuff all day long. Anyway. Yeah. Tyler?
Well, it sounded like you were going to close it up, but I'll just remind everybody that they can watch the show on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Is that right?
And next week is about practice.
Okay, practice. Well, tell us a little bit about that. Practicing what?
We're just talking. He says, so this is part of Tim Flynn's self-discovery course, which I'm really enjoying because there's never enough self-discovery. And it always gets you to a deeper level. No matter how many times you do an exercise, it always gives a deeper meaning. So practice is the second to last module in Tim Flynn's course. And we will be talking about it next week. And then the week after that is accountability. And that will conclude Tim's course. And then we'll move to other courses. And I also have a Myers-Briggs course, or not course, I mean week, focus week for Myers-Briggs that's coming up with a guest speaker. So tune into that one whenever that's going to be scheduled.
See, there you go. And that's all you have to do. And now you can wrap it up.
Oh, well.
But you also talked about needing 20 solid hours of experience to be a pro at anything. I see your show note now. I was going to say you didn't have this in the show notes, but it is in there. So
20,
that's
yeah,
what you do.
practice.
You do such a
That's
good job.
well, we'll talk about the 20 hours practice and why that's significant next week. Because that is something we actually learned in Autonomy and blew my mind. I don't know, your guys, 20 hours blow your mind? But we're not going to tell the listeners what it's about. Not
Well, you
till
guys
Monday.
are pro podcasters now, and you're got the OBS down over there along with Zoom and doing that in Discord. So, a lot of people that might seem really daunting. And, I think this podcast is a great example of taking the skills that you've learned and incorporating them and becoming pro at something. And, I wish you guys all the best of luck with any other podcasts and things you might do that any of the skills that you're learning here help you with.
With us, it's 20 hours per person that we need to do in order to be pros, not just 20 hours. So we still have a way to go.
Yeah, well, you can train the others on the skills that you've learned. We can do a couple training videos on how you do the back end of this show. And raising excellence can be about helping people accomplish those feats too.
Yeah, that sounds
How
awesome.
we raising excellence
together. All right, we're going to close it out till Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tyler from tylerbloyer.com. Make sure you check him out. And we will see you
Tyler.
on Monday.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tyler. We love you. You're awesome.
Thanks, Raising Excellence peeps.
And thank you, all the people listening. Have a good time.